to talk about writing a book and self-publishing it, and actually publishing in general, like the choices that you have for publishing. So since I became an author in 2014, and because I've been writing since 2020 as a copywriter, but when I tell people that I have written a book and that I help people write books, whether I'm in a networking environment or I'm out for a walk and I talk to somebody, I inevitably 95% of the time get this answer: everybody tells me I should write a book. And I think that that's so great, and I love it because I know that there's got to be a good story behind that somewhere. And I don't always get to hear the stories, but I always encourage people, you should write a book if that's the case. And I just saw my younger brother a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me some of the things that were challenging him and that had challenged him in his past, in his childhood. And I said, did you ever think about writing a book? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, writing it down, really, it gives you something that you can't get any other way. So that's why I wrote my book. I went through an experience with my granddaughter and my daughter. My granddaughter's now 12. She's special needs, but she's very special needs. And that journey really was a transformation for me. And that's what my personal memoir is about, and I'm writing another one. So the question becomes, why should I do this? And how do I do it? And what would I write about? So let's start with why. Why would you write a book? Why would anybody want to write a book? Well, my story was different than yours might be, but we're all women in business, and one reason is to add to your credentials. A lot of people do it for that reason, and it doesn't mean that you have to be a solopreneur or even a business owner. Even if you're an employee and you write a book, it lends a certain credibility to you to have become an author. But for most of us, or a lot of people that I help, it's a way to promote their business, which also adds to their credentials, right? Especially if they're speaking, they can list that in their bio. They can use it to promote their business, to give it away or sell it, but they establish themselves as an expert in their field. So it's a credibility thing. If that's not the case, then you can tell your story. That's what I did. And what I love, and my purpose in doing this, whether it be a business book, our businesses are part of us. It is part of our story, is that I feel like if I help people tell their stories, they understand themselves better because it's written down. They have to go through the process of really explaining themselves to someone else. And the reader, the person that they're telling the story to, gets a glimpse of who's behind that business, that story. And when you understand yourself, you understand other people better. And when other people understand you, it's just better relationships. And I think that that's the key to everything, especially now. We're very divided, but if we know the stories behind what makes someone choose what they do, vote the way they do, even if it doesn't agree with us, it makes it easier for us to understand, even if we don't like it. So I feel like that's a role, that's my personal mission statement. And that's why one reason I love what I do. Another thing about story is family legacy. And a lot of people don't realize this, but if you have a family legacy, a story about your ancestors, a story about something that happened in your family, and you're concerned that that story and the power of it will be lost by word of mouth, you can put it down in a book. You can add pictures to it. And I don't think people realize that that's something that you can actually do, will not cost very much money at all. You don't have to sell it on Amazon. You can print a few copies, which really, I can tell you later on in the presentation, doesn't cost you much. And you have that for your family to pass down. You can order 40 copies and give it away, or whatever, but you know you have a written record. So that's kind of a lovely way to do that. And people do that. And then the other way, hey, if you've got a great imagination, share it. I'm not particularly good at fiction, but a lot of people have a lot of great stories in their heads that they can share, be it science fiction, be it thriller, or romance novels. Those things sell. There are people out there just waiting to devour another good story. And I don't help people with fiction. I think that that's really in the head of the person who's imagining, but certainly the rest of it definitely falls within what I'm going to tell you. So we're going to do two little polls, and the first one, are we ready, Nancy?
Unfortunately, I can't set it up without going
Okay,
out
no
of
problem.
here.
All right, so I'm gonna, I won't see your responses, but this is what I want you to think about. So the first thing is, have you ever wanted to write a book? So typically, if you say yes, then you're really gonna love what I can offer you in this presentation. If you say no, maybe you'll start to think about it after we're through here, or you know somebody, or maybe you're already a published author. If you're a yes, I hope I can help you with this. If you're a no, maybe I can inspire you. And if you're already a published author, boy, I would love to connect with you and swap stories and information and all those things that make connections so great and interesting. So the other thing is, the second question to think about is, okay, maybe I've given you a little bit of a nudge if you haven't thought about writing a book, but if you have, what would it be? What kind of book, what genre would it be? And think about fiction, romance or thriller or science fiction that we talked about, or maybe it's a children's book because you have little kids and you have a great story. I've one in me that I haven't put down yet, but I really want to. Young adult books, if you really sort of understand the world of teenagers and young adult, I applaud you, and I think you ought to write a book about it. So there's nonfiction memoir. That's what I wrote, and I'm writing another one that's sort of similar. And then there's the business promoting ones that are, you know, your nonfiction business book, how to, or a book about a business experience for personal development. So right now, I'm working on my own book and I'm working on two other books. And actually, they encompass this kind of business, how to, personal story, credibility. It's serving all these purposes for these people, and they're really excited about it. And one is becoming a speaker, and the other already is and has a great business and wants to use it to promote himself and his business, but also his passion. So it's a great consideration, and there's lots of ways to come to it, right? So what's selling is what people want to know. So printed books still dominate. Besides the fact that there's Kindle and every other thing, print, everybody still, we thought it would go away, but no, it didn't go away. And isn't that a great thing? Nonfiction are the most popular in digital format. Audiobooks are the fastest growing, and memories, biographies, romance, and thrillers, they're the most popular genres, print and digital. And if you did a book, you can have it in all three formats. So you can do the hard copy, you can do the ebook, and you can also do an audiobook. They're all possible with your same book. So it's three markets basically from um, one manuscript. So the next question is, we kind of thought about that, the who and what, but how do we do this? How do you write a book? What's involved if you're going to do it? Well, obviously, you have to write it and edit and proofread. There's the design of the inside and the covers. There's the production of it, which is actually getting it. I have print copies here, but it could be the digital or the audio also. You have to produce it somehow. Then you have to distribute it. So you have to get it to the booksellers so that the sellers can get it to the consumers. You may be one conduit for that. It could be, or there could be something greater. And then you have to market it. You have to make people aware that it's there and get buyers interested, right? And hopefully it sells, and then hopefully you have a profit and you get paid in royalties. So that's the overall of what's involved. So first we're going to talk about the writing part. Um, how do you write a book? Well, there are several ways actually. One is to put your butt in a chair and just do it, or maybe it's another way, but you're actually doing it. Whatever works for you when you write. I love this picture. I think it's a riot, and he really is an author, although his name was not attached to this picture. So you literally have to sit down and write it. I will say a couple things about that. If you're sitting and writing and you think that you have to have the whole outline and everything figured out before you start writing, I will tell you, you don't. If you're a person that works that way, I envy you. I don't work that way. I work from my heart and I write about what's on the top of my heart and then I fill in the blanks. It's a little messy, but it's definitely possible to do. So don't worry if you don't have the whole thing figured out. And you may find, be it fiction or nonfiction, something will evolve that you just didn't expect. It's nice to have a title first. Sometimes to do a mock-up of the book cover to inspire you, but getting your butt in the chair, that's the most common way for that people write books. Another way that some people don't think about is you can actually dictate most of it. In the book I'm writing now, I did dictate a lot of it into Google Docs. So when you do that, if you've done that, I have it on my phone. It comes out in this like crawling one-lined thing transcribed. You learn how bad your diction is when you see what comes out of it sometimes, which is kind of funny. But you can break that apart and you have the gist of things without having to write it down. And this works really nicely if you tend to think about these things while you're driving or whatever. It's a nice tool. You can either do it the Google Docs way, or you can record into a recording, mechanism, which I have on my phone, a recorder. Those files you can have transcribed. And it's not really very expensive at all. I've used Fiverr and Prescription Panda. They're all about the same amount of money to have them done. The big variable is if you want it in 24 hours, it's going to cost you more. But it's a way to get started and capture your thoughts on the fly rather than trying to write them down, because you'll find that you can't stop thinking about it and you'll have new ideas and you'll capture them. Another way to get your book done is a ghostwriter. And that's what I do, but I'm not going to talk about that now. Just if we have time at the end, I'll explain a little more, because I get a lot of questions from people not understanding, how could this possibly happen? How could someone actually write for me? So when it comes to writing, one thing that is not negotiable, no matter how you do it, is editing and proofreading. So I just engaged an editor for the book that I'm working on. And you have to find the right editor for you, but you simply cannot have the perspective of the reader if you're the writer. You just can't, because you have so much in your head that you can't explain everything as clearly as it might need to be read. So there are lots of different kinds of editors. There are content editors, there's line editors, there's editors that are more proofreaders. You have to do both, because it's like the trainer in this picture. That person is making sure that your form is right, that it makes sense, that you're getting the most out of what you're putting out there. And I will say that you have to pay a little money for a good editor. Don't use a friend. That's just my suggestion, because they're not unbiased. They know you. They probably know a little of your story or what you're saying, doing. But there are lots of different kinds of editors, and you can find the one that you want to work with. After it's edited and you make your changes, then you send it to a proofreader. And that's the person that's going to look at the punctuation, overuse of the same word, and all sorts of things, the sentence structure, misused words, misspelled words, things like that. Then you have a manuscript, which is simply like a Word document, double spaced, all your content, and then you're ready to publish. And you can think about publishing certainly while you're writing. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to talk about 4 ways to publish, 2 major ways, and subsets within them. So to be clear, publishing encompasses everything but writing. The writing is pretty much separate from publishing, and there are some exceptions to that too. So it includes the design, the production, the distribution, the marketing, and the profit. So I'm going to talk first about traditional publishing. And these are some of the names that you know of. And everyone, I think, would love to have a traditionally published book. It used to be that's all there was, and anything else just was frowned upon. So here are a few pros and cons for traditional publishing. It doesn't cost you anything. You possibly, and I love the word possibly, can sell more books. It has that social cachet of credibility that's a little different than others. And the whole process is done for you. However, it's very competitive. It's a very lengthy process. It's less creative. You have less creative control, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Lower royalties and minimal marketing support. So this is my experience in pursuing or learning about traditional publishing. It's genre specific. So if you want to go after a publisher, you need to find publishers who are publishing the kinds of books that you write, because different publishers do different things. Many times you have to have an agent. The agent is the one that has the relationships. The agent is the one that knows how to approach them. You can do it yourself. Either way, it requires a query letter, a summary of your book, some chapters, and a lot of submissions, and a lot of waiting for a response. Book editors will tell you that they have stacks of manuscripts on their desk like this. So for you to get to the front of the pile or get noticed, you have to be really good. Sometimes publishers and agents go after people. A few people in the National Speakers Association that I'm in are also educators and pretty well known, and they've been approached by publishers, but that's pretty rare. The other thing is that with them, you have a contract that has to be negotiated, and your agent usually does that. Unless you feel confident doing it yourself, know that an agent costs you money, and they take part of your royalties. The publishing company, if they take you on and you sign the contract, they take control of your whole book. What I mean by that is, let's say you were going to do a kid's book, like a young children's book, and you got an illustrator and did the whole thing, nope, they won't use your illustrator. They're probably going to use their own, and you've just wasted all that time and money. If it's an adult book, they're going to make the edits, and they're going to tell you what to edit, and you're going to edit it, and you're probably going to have to argue if you don't like what they're doing. They know they want to make money. They know what their readers want, and they want your book to fit that, whatever that paradigm is. So you lose control, not just over the publishing, but many times over the content. If you go with a publisher, from the time you sign the contract, it's probably 18 months before your book sees the bookshelves. And for some people, that's a really long time. For me, that was the one thing, well, one of 2 things that made me say, I can't wait that long. I'm going to self-publish. And this was in 2014. The biggest misnomer about traditional publishing, you still do 95% of the marketing. So when you approach a publisher, one of the things they're going to want to know is, do you have a following? Do you have a platform? Are you known? How many people are on your social media? How many do you have an email list for? Because they don't want to do the marketing, and they probably won't unless you're Stephen King or somebody that you've heard of. And if you think about it, you don't see too many books advertised anymore like you used to. They're just not doing it. So still, a lot of it weighs on you, and your contract may say that you have to do so many book signings and whatever. You have to set them up. You have to get your butt there. You have to do them. They're giving you very, very little help. So the other thing is the royalties from them are from 5 to 15% of the publisher's revenue. So think of it this way. Let's say your book the market price is $20. If the publisher spends $10 to get that thing created, then the net profit is $10 on that book. If your if your royalty is 10%, you're getting $1 for every $20 book sold. If you have an advance, if you get an advance, let's say sometimes that happens. The publisher wants you to concentrate on the book. If you've only sent a few chapters, they may give you some money so you can concentrate on it. Let's say that book, they gave you a $5,000 advance and your book retails for $25 and you get 10% royalties. You would need to sell 4,000 books just to pay back the advance, because it is an advance. It's not a gift. It has to be paid back. So those are a lot of reasons why people turn away. So in contrast to traditional publishing is self-publishing. There are a lot of self-publishing outlets. My experience is with Amazon. There are others. They're all a little bit different, but overall pretty much the same. So I published my book on Amazon with CreateSpace. They've now turned that over to Kindle Direct Publishing. They just used to do Kindle, that arm, and now it does all the books. So don't be fooled or concerned by that Kindle. They do the print books as well. It's an arm of Amazon. You actually use your Amazon login to go there and set up your book. It's like a one-stop process. So the process of self-publishing is a little different. First of all, you decide. No one has to tell you can do it or not. You just decide. You want to do a book, you want to publish it, you do it. That's it. You have all the control and all the responsibility. The good news is that if you use someone like Amazon, first of all, they sell more books than anybody, but second of all, they have great tools. Kindle Direct Publishing has an entire do-it-yourself tools, from creating a cover to doing the inside design to all sorts of things. They have videos and they have seminars and everything. So if you're inclined, there's a lot of help without going anywhere else to get the job done. The other thing is all of this is free. This whole process is free to put on Amazon. They don't charge you anything. You literally get the book done to their specifications and upload it, and you put in the other data and you click a thing and there you are. I'm literally in a half hour, you're on Amazon.com. That's pretty exciting. You do get to order a galley so that you can see how it looks before you press the button. The other thing is nice about this is if you want to make a change, you make a change, and it's the next book that gets sold is changed. So it also has the highest royalties when you self-publish, because you're doing it all for yourself. So for instance, you set your own price of what you want your book to be, and Amazon tells you what your royalties will be from that, because they just take out the cost of printing the book, and they take care, if people are ordering it on Amazon, they take care of the shipping and they take care of the taxes, so you have nothing to worry about there. So they take all those costs out, and what's left is your royalty. You can order those books at cost. If you want to be a speaker and you want to bring them in the back of the room like I do, you order books, you send them to yourself, you take them where you're going. Those books, you pay the print and shipping fee. So for instance, my book sells for $20, and I do donate all the royalties to special needs kids and families. So I want to get the most out of it. So if I order 50 copies of my book that sells normally for $20 for me to have and sell, I pay Amazon $3.30 per book, which means I am making $16.70 per book for every one that I sell from myself, right? I get to keep the 16.70. And I get to write off the 330 per book because I consider that to be marketing costs for me. So it's kind of a nice way to do that. So if you're looking for the money, self-publishing is the way to go. The caveat there is you have to market it. It's all on you. And there's lots of ways to do that. And there are a lot of people who can help you do that. There are a lot of people you can pay, or if you have a great social media following, depends on what you want your book to do. I didn't expect my book to make any money. I'm glad to donate the money. And I will be the first one to say I'm not the best one at marketing my own stuff. With my next book, I'm definitely going to work with somebody because you can't do everything, but that's just me. So that's self-publishing. That's the difference of no control, all control, more money, less money. And then there are variations underneath self-publishing called assisted publishing. Assisted publishing, you decide. It's a company that knows the whole self-publishing world. And if you don't feel comfortable doing some of those things, you decide to work with a self-publisher. They will take you on as long as you're asking them to do things that are within their wheelhouse. So you have good control. You have a lot of options of their services to choose. Some do editing. There's a couple in Connecticut that actually do ghostwriting. Some help you with marketing. They put it up on Amazon. They put it up on other outlets. They help you with cover copy. They help you with cover design. They can do the interior layout. Anything you don't want to do. They have many levels of pricing, and it can be pretty quick to market. If you can make your decisions and work with them, they're usually pretty quick, and it probably costs you $500 maybe up, just depending on the services that you choose. One other type of publishing, which is a little bit of a hybrid, is a boutique publisher. And boutique publisher they're genre specific, okay? So you might have a Christian publisher, you might have a how-to publisher, you might have the publisher that does the dummies books, you might have some that do romance novels. With a boutique publisher, you have to find one who's publishing what you want to publish. Many times they only do so many books a year. They'll take your manuscript, and they have some services that are much more encompassing. They probably want to take the book and they probably want to design the cover for you and do the internal. And very often some of them only do hard copy books. And in some cases, what they want to do is you commit to 1,000 copies and you need to store them in your garage. So that's sort of the old fashioned way anything but traditional publishing happened. Depending on their schedule, it's going to take 4 to 6 months to get your book to the marketplace, and you're going to share the royalties with them. Most of them that I've seen have package prices that are around $15,000 that encompass all of helping you with maybe a marketing plan too, but they're not going to execute the marketing. So depending on how you feel about that, you can go that route too. So I'm at a point here now where my mouth is dry and you're tired of listening. So do you have any questions? Nancy, did you get any in the chat, or do you want to open it up? However you want to do it, you can help me.
I did get a great question from Carissa. Excuse me. Are you able, excuse me, so sorry. Are you able to write a book about your experiences without sharing your personal information to make it anonymous?
Yeah, I have a friend who was very concerned about that. So she published her book under a pen name. You can do that. You can set up a landing page, a website under that pen name. You can make your email your pen name. You don't have to share any, as long as your book is for sale, and as long as you can be contacted if you want. Maybe you don't want, sure, you can do that. Um, any way that you want. A lot of people are very concerned about sharing their stuff. They want to share it, but they don't want people to know it's them. So sure, you can do that.